Guys, so I'm back and I'm here with my first official review video for 2015, and hopefully 2015 has been treating you guys great so far, and this video has been requested by you guys and I am happy to oblige. This is gonna be my review for the Makeup Geek foiled eyeshadows that are brand spanking new in their line. They debuted in November. They had a pre-sale and now they're selling the singles as well as a bundle of 10 of these eyeshadows on their website. So we're gonna jump into the review and my overall thoughts of these eyeshadows. For those of you who may be curious about the original eyeshadows in the Makeup Geek lineup, I do have two full videos dedicated to that. I have a full swatch fest swatching all the original eyeshadows from the Makeup Geek line, and I'll leave a link below so you can check that out. I'll also try to leave a link somewhere in here. I never actually update the annotation, but I'll leave a link down in the description so you can check that out. And I also did a full review video of the formulation, the packaging, the whole shebang, as well as my top picks for their eyeshadows. So definitely check below in the description for those eyeshadows. So the first thing I jump into, as always with my review, is the price of these eyeshadows. And these eyeshadows currently retail for $9.99 each for 0.064 ounces of product. So they're slightly larger than the average size small eyeshadow on the market, which is 0.05 ounces, give or take. That's a typical MAC eyeshadow. And you can also buy these in a bundle of 10, so you can get all 10 shades for $89.99, which you save $1 each on these eyeshadows. But for reference purposes, we're just gonna say these are $9.99 each, and we'll use $10 as a rounded whole number for easy reference. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably wondering, wait, what? They're $10 each? Makeup Geek eyeshadows are $5.99. That's their pull, that's their draw. They're very affordable for, you know, beginners and those that are more budget conscious. So for these to go up to $10 was a kind of shock to me. I was like, oh my god, what? Now, I always do price comparisons to show the value when compared against other brands on the market. And at $10, these go toe for toe with the MAC Pro Pan eyeshadows. So the eyeshadows that you can buy from MAC in the pan form are $10 each. They're $10 each. They are slightly smaller, yes, but not significantly smaller. And these are $10, so now these Makeup Geek eyeshadows are the same price as a MAC eyeshadow. Now that price point puts these eyeshadows in a different category for me, because now I'm going to compare them a little bit harsher than I would like a $2 eyeshadow. A Milani eyeshadow that's $3.50, $3.99, I might give a little leeway in the formulation. I might be okay with doing a little bit extra, putting a little more effort into making them work, versus an eyeshadow that I paid $20 for. I expect that to be top notch. I shouldn't have any issues. So now these eyeshadows at $10 a pop, they better be worth the $10. And I know you guys are thinking the same thing. These must be worth that $10 price tag that is now attached, which is a $4 increase on the regular Makeup Geek eyeshadows. Regular Makeup Geek eyeshadows are $5.99, so we're talking about 70% cost increase, 70%, which is quite significant. And remember, since these are pan form eyeshadows, they just come like this. You're gonna need to buy a separate palette to place these in, and they will attach to any magnetized palette. This is a Z palette, and you are gonna have to buy one to put these in, and that's gonna add to the cost of the eyeshadows overall. So you're not just spending $10, but you're also gonna spend an additional almost $20 on a Z palette to place these in. Quickly, I just wanted to show you the packaging of these eyeshadows. They are still in the same kind of envelope packaging that Makeup Geek packages all their eyeshadows in, but the design is a little bit different. It has a rose gold design to differentiate between the foiled eyeshadows and the regular eyeshadows. It's still just a sleeve with the eyeshadows sitting in there. There's not too much cushion, so there can be a little bit of damage during shipping, and they have indicated, Marlena herself has mentioned that there has been some issues with shipping these products. They're trying to bubble wrap them and everything, but they are very soft, delicate formulas, so they can smash in shipment. So if you get a smashed eyeshadow, reach out to Makeup Geek's customer service to get a replacement, because that's an issue that they're working on. So definitely reach out and get your replacement. But it's a pretty packaging, but it's not the best packaging, I would say, for any eyeshadow, much less these of a softer formula. So let's just jump into the good, the bad, and the ugly of these eyeshadows to see if they are indeed worth that elevated price. Before we get into the swatches, which I know that is what you guys are waiting on, I just wanted to do a rundown of the formula of these eyeshadows because they are a different formula. On the Makeup Geek website, it says, with these rich and intensely hued shades, the new Makeup Geek foiled eyeshadows go beyond your standard line of cosmetics, introducing you to a new and powerful cosmetic experience. This cutting-edge formula offers a creamy texture that is a hybrid between a powder eyeshadow and a cream shadow that is on a level of its own. The intense pigmentation combined with an opaque, metallic finish makes these eyeshadows a dream to work with. These can be applied effortlessly in just one swipe with no primer required, and our lineup includes a diverse array of rich colors and a smooth, silky formula that we believe will help elevate pressed eyeshadows to the next level of exceptional quality. Now, I don't know about you, but that is quite a marketing claim. Like, it's something that makes you want to try out these eyeshadows because they must be amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the swatches now, but I want you to remember that the product description says that these can be applied effortlessly in just one swipe and no primer is required, so keep that in mind. And they also say that they have an opaque metallic finish, so keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind as we go through the swatches. I'm going to do swatches without primer, as they said, but I'm going to do swatches with a brush. And I don't know about you, but I apply my eyeshadows with a brush, and most of the YouTube gurus have been doing finger swatches, which is all well and good if that's how you intend on using these eyeshadows, or that's how they're marketed. Use your finger as like the ColourPop eyeshadows, they say use your fingers, then that's fine. But these weren't marketed as finger only, so I'm doing these as brush swatches, and I'm gonna do the finger swatch next to it so you can see the comparison and see the difference, and you can compare the finger swatch versus the brush swatch and see how they compare. So when makeup gurus and all of these big time YouTubers go on and on doing a finger swatch and telling you that eyeshadows are amazing, keep in the back of your mind that you're not going to apply these eyeshadows with a finger necessarily. That's not how you apply the eyeshadows in practice, so keep that in the back of your head, and let's just jump into the swatches. So for this video, I am going to attempt to do live swatches, and the first shade is Magic Act, which is described as a light gold with yellow undertones and a foiled finish, which all of these are going to have a foiled finish. And I'm using my MAC 242 to apply this color, and they did say you wouldn't need a primer, so I'm applying it without a primer, and that's what we'll have. And for reference, here it is on my finger, and I'm going to do a swatch of that right next to the brush swatch. So you can see the difference between a brush swatch and a finger swatch. Next up is In the Spotlight, which is described as a soft pink with coral undertones and a foiled finish. Again, they all have foiled finishes. And I seem to have to apply 3 swatches with the brush to build up any intensity of these first 2 shades. So that's with 3 swipes. And with my finger, again, you can see it on my finger. That's a heavy swatch. And that's how it looks with your finger. Next up is Grandstand, which is described as a medium rose gold with slight taupe undertones. And this one got a little crumbly on me there. If you pick up too much on your brush, it will apply a little bit crumbly, so be careful about that. And this is the great thing about live swatches, is that you can see the trouble that I'm having applying them with a brush on my skin. So if you're using a brush with these, I would pick up a little to start with and build up the color rather than trying to get a good amount on the brush and then packing it on your lids, because you're going to get crumbling and fallout and it's not pretty. Now that that fiasco is over, I'm going to apply it with my finger. And these apply beautifully with your finger. They feel really creamy on the skin, so it's almost like you want to apply them with your finger versus a brush. Next up is the shade Mesmerize. Then I'm showing you the color on the brush before I apply it. And I'm using a synthetic brush specifically since these shadows are described as creamy, and a synthetic brush works better with creamy shades. So I'm applying these with a synthetic 242 from MAC. This color is described as a deep medium taupe with strong purple undertones, which is funny how you would say deep and medium in the same sentence to describe a color, but that one doesn't apply as troublesome as the other two. It only needed 2 layers to get that opacity. Now here it is on my finger again, and let's swatch it to see the difference. And there you see again, it applies a little bit more smoothly when you use your finger. So here again, I'll show you the 4 shades. So here we have round 2, and first up is Flamethrower, which is one of the most beautiful shades in the collection. This one is described as a true brightened warm copper. So there you have the brush swatch, and here it is on my finger. And again, one swipe of my finger, and it has nice smooth color payoff. It's a little bit sheerer when you applied with a brush, as you can see. Then we have Showtime, which is described as a rusty brown with warm undertones. And it's applying pretty decently with a brush. Again, make sure that you don't pick up any chunks of the shadow because they're hard to blend out and then they want to flake off your skin. Then here is this color on my finger. And as you can see, all of these shades kind of apply a little bit more smoothly and evenly when applied with your finger. Now we have Center Stage, which is described as a bright royal blue. And this one actually doesn't need as much building up. It only took 2 swipes to get it to this opacity. And again, here it is on my finger. And I think you get the same color payoff with 2 layers using the brush and your finger. Next up we have Caitlyn Rose, which is described as a bright amethyst purple. And 1 swipe is not gonna do it. Let's try again. Okay, 2 swipes is not gonna do it. And the 3rd swipe, which is as much as I'm gonna give it. Still a little bit sheer. And here it is on my finger. Yeah. Still a little bit sheer. It feels a little bit rough on my skin, but that's the color. And here again are all 4 shades. Now we have the 2 final shades. First up is Jester, which is described as a bright mossy green with slight gold undertones. 2nd layer. Still doesn't build up quite that well, so I'm going to go in with a 3rd. Here we go on my finger. Again, much smoother, much more pigmented. And last up is Houdini, which is described as a deep emerald teal green. And okay, that doesn't look too good. 2nd layer, and it's getting a little bit chunky, so I have to blend out the chunks a little bit. 3rd pass. Okay, no bueno. And here it is on my finger. Obviously it's gonna look much better swatched on my finger. And here are the last 2 shades. As you can see, they swatch so much better when using your finger. Alright, so I decided to get some primer out and try these over primer. So the first shade I'm trying is the lightest shade, which is Magic Act, and it applies much better over primer, as you can see. Let's try one of the darker shades. This is Houdini. And the 2nd layer with primer works a little bit better. And I'm going to try Caitlyn Rose, which doesn't really pick up well on the brush to begin with. So I don't really think a primer is going to help. It applies a little bit more evenly, but it's still pretty sheer. And how about Grandstand? That applies much better over primer, and this is just one layer. So there you go, 4 of the shades over primer, and I think they work a lot better over primer. And this is just a run-of-the-mill primer. It's my Tarte Clean Slate 360 degree creaseless eye primer. And just to help these along, I'm gonna apply them with a damp brush to see if that helps at all. This again is Houdini. Okay, nope, it just clumps up a little bit more when the brush is damp. That's not really good. So applying that one damp doesn't really help. Let's try Grandstand again, which now applies like a cream when it's wet. My brush was a little bit wet, so it applies very opaquely like a cream eyeshadow. That's very pretty. And how about we try Gesture, which is the green shade. Let's try that damp as well. Again with the lumping up or clumping up. But okay, so applied damp, they kind of apply like a cream eyeshadow would. This one goes on a little bit more sheer. And last, I'm gonna try out Flamethrower, which is one of the better shades. So let's see how this applies damp. And yeah, it applies like a cream eyeshadow. Nice opacity, nice pigmentation, but it does try to sheer out as you blend it out. So here are 4 of the shades applied with a damp brush. Now, these eyeshadows are foiled eyeshadows. That's what they are marketing them as, and they're brand new in the lineup. They're a brand new formulation. They're different from the existing formulation completely. And there was quite a PR push for these eyeshadows on social media. Quite a few YouTube gurus got PR samples of these eyeshadows to try out, test out, you know, before they actually debuted. And I actually was sent these eyeshadows, believe it or not. Marlena watched my last Makeup Geek eyeshadow review videos, and she reached out and offered to send me a set of these for my review because she realized that I didn't really fall in love with the previous formula. So she was like, oh, I want you to try these out. Now, I wasn't a part of the PR push. This was just a courtesy. Since I didn't love the eyeshadows from the previous set, she wanted me to try out these eyeshadows. So I'm not a part of the PR promotion, but either way, I'd still be completely honest with you about the eyeshadows. And the formulation, a lot of people have been declaring that this is so different than anything in the world. They've never tried anything like this. It's such a creamy formula. It's such a different texture. But I tried these eyeshadows out when I got them, and they reminded me, quite frankly, of the Infallible eyeshadows from L'Oreal. These are those little pot eyeshadows with like pressed pigments. They're kind of pressed into the pan, and the texture is very similar to these eyeshadows. They're almost like spot on the same. And the Makeup Geek eyeshadows are a dimethicone rich formula, which makes them very silky, and there's this slip to them because silicones give that slip. If you've tried a silicone primer, you know it has that little slippery texture to it. That's the ingredient that's giving it that slip in the eyeshadows. And one thing I noticed is that the eyeshadows actually fall apart pretty easily. They crumble, and then they remind me of the MAC pigment stacks. Do you remember these? They did a couple of these in holiday collections, and these were kind of the moist, pressed, loose pigments. And they're in little balls, and you press them against your lids and blend them out to get like a nice even coverage. So the formula to me is not the most interesting or different. It's not this innovative formula. It's probably something you felt in your own collection if you have any of these kinds of eyeshadows. So now that you've seen these swatches and you've seen these eyeshadows kind of in action with a primer, without a primer, applied wet, with a brush, with a finger, you can see the difference between a finger swatch swatch and a brush swatch. And the brush swatch is very realistic with how these apply to the eyelids. And I was a little bit offended, and I felt like a lot of the larger YouTubers that I watch and actually enjoy, did finger swatches and were just, oh my god, these eyeshadows are so pigmented, they're so awesome. And then you look at the eyeshadow and you're like, wait, that didn't even look like you used it at all, first of all. So did you actually test these, or are you just finger swatching these? I mean, really, what kind of disservice are you doing to your subscribers and your viewers when you're gonna be kind of misleading with the swatches? Like, that's not how it truly applies. That and it pissed me off to no end, and I had to just vent a little bit about it. We're talking about big YouTubers, and I'm not gonna say names because I don't like drama, but you guys can figure out who did these videos raving and going on about these eyeshadows when you're like, did you actually use them? Really? So anyway, I'm going to go into my thoughts and my review of these eyeshadows. And right out the gate, I can say I truly don't like these eyeshadows, and I don't think they're worth that hiked up price point, but it's up to you, and I'll go through the pros and cons and you can see if these are something you want to invest in. So first off, the formulation is very soft and crumbly. And in shipment, I didn't have any crumbling. I didn't have my eyeshadows falling apart, thankfully. But when I started using them, like, you touch them with your finger, which is your first inclination. You touch them with your finger and your finger just goes in because it's a soft, like I said, silicone rich formula. But the thing is, they kind of break apart. Like, they have chips and dents and dings, and they make a mess. Like, my palette is so messy, and I've cleaned this 2 times already. I've cleaned this 2 times, and it's a wide palette, so it shows the mess like nobody's business. But if you can see, there's like crumbs and residue all over the eyeshadows, and you'll see dings and dents in the eyeshadows from just using them with a brush. So imagine how these will be like over time. It's just a very messy formula, and it leads to waste of the eyeshadow. So if you chip it, a lot of the eyeshadow is gonna like flake off and crumble off and get lost, and you're not gonna get full use of these eyeshadows, so you're gonna lose a lot of the product just in using them. They're gonna just fly all over the place. So that's the first thing I don't like. And Marlena did mention that they're soft, and she's thinking of doing pigment forms of these eyeshadows rather than keeping them in pressed form, which I think is actually a good idea, to do these in pigment form since they fall apart so easily, and it's a waste of money to have them pressed and then they fall apart and you lose most of the product anyway. Second thing is that not all of the shades have that high shine finish that they declare when you actually apply them with a brush. If you apply the neutral shades, so I'd say Mesmerize, Grandstand, and what's the other one? Grandstand and Showtime. These 3 shades are not high shine finishes, which actually works out for me because I don't like that high shine frosty finish. I don't think it's flattering, especially if you have lines in your lids. So for me that works out fine, even though I expected a high shine finish based on the product description. But for me, it's better if they're not high shine finishes. They're also not opaque in one swipe. None of these are opaque in one swipe with a brush. With a finger, yeah, they're glorious. Look, with my finger, oh my god, yeah, they look divine. But with an actual brush, they don't come off on the lids as such. And that's the misleading part that I didn't like. The eyeshadows do not apply in a full opaque finish with a brush without a primer for me. And I've seen makeup tutorials with the eyeshadows being used, and it's interesting. They use a primer and then they really pack on the eyeshadows, and they pack it just on the lid. And I'm gonna get into that in a second. But the colorful shades, so Caitlyn Rose, which unfortunately this one is the worst performer of the bunch. This one is just one that I wouldn't recommend getting. It is, however, the charity shade. The proceeds from this, the profits go towards Batten disease, a charity of Marlena's choice, and it's named after someone that suffered from Batten disease and she lost her life to this. So it's a good charity aspect, but I wouldn't buy the eyeshadow for the charity. I would actually donate directly to the charity. Google Batten disease and find a charity organization to donate to rather than buying the eyeshadows. But These 4 eyeshadows are just a bust. And I was especially disappointed in Houdini as well because it's such a beautiful color, and when you finger swatch it, you're like, oh my god, it's so pretty. But it doesn't come off that way, and that disappointed me because it was one of the shades that I really wanted to love. The other shade, the other colorful shade is Flamethrower, which actually, it did better than the other colorful shades. It was a little bit more decent in color payoff, better pigmentation, it showed up better. Not a high shine frosty finish, but it's a nice intense metallic coppery red shade. It's very pretty. That one I actually don't mind too much. And then the 3 neutral shades, like I mentioned, Showtime is not shiny at all. Showtime, Mesmerized, and Grandstand were the 3 shades that I actually was able to use, and I'll get into that. And then the other 2 shades, the Magic Act and In the Spotlight shades, are very shiny, frosty, icy shades, which are not good for darker skin tones unless you're just going to use it on the very inner tear duct, which that's all I would recommend for these. Using them all over the eye can be a little bit too intense and too icy for darker skin. I wouldn't personally use them on the entire lid because they'd be too intense. But those did okay. Again, not good pigmentation, not good color payoff. The most disappointing thing, now we can get into the most disappointing thing of these eyeshadows. They crease like nobody's business on me. It's a complete waste for me. These eyeshadows crease, they crease, they crease the moment I apply them on my lid. So I apply them without a primer, like they said. I apply them with a MAC 239 brush. So one of these flat shader brushes to pack on the color. It creased within 10 minutes. It was creasing. So I applied a primer instead, and I applied a lighter layer where we get sheer pigmentation now because it's not going to be intense because I'm not packing on the color. And it creased. And it was just like, what are you doing to me? I tried Urban Decay Primer Potion, the original formula, the anti-aging version. I used Too Faced Shadow Insurance. I used the Kat Von D High Voltage Primer. I used the NARS Smudge Proof Primer. I used my MAC Paint Pots. Crease, 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 crease city. And my tried and true is to use Urban Decay Primer Potion topped with my MAC Paint Pot, which gives me a matte finish. So eyeshadows do not crease on me anymore. I've got to that point in my makeup life that eyeshadows don't crease. I've got this down pat. Eyeshadows don't crease anymore. And these brought me back to my first month of makeup where my eyeshadows creased because I didn't know about a primer. I was like, what the hell? They creased like, and you think I'm lying. I'm going to show you a clip right now and you're going to see these eyeshadows on my lid creasing. Ugh, it was so devastating because I was sitting at my desk. I was testing these out because I wear makeup to work to test things out. And these eyeshadows creased and I look like a big fool with the eyeshadow creasing on my lids. And I used Center Stage on my outer lid. Well, the outer, the outer lid area. I used Caitlyn Rose to blend out the edges so it was a nice what do you call that, purple look. And I did this very sheerly over primer again, and this was creasing. And if you have oily lids, don't get these eyeshadows. Skip them altogether. Just don't waste your money. If you have lines in your lids, and I'm gonna show you what I mean by lines in my lids. If you see my eyelids, I have lines. So when I open my eyes, there will be lines and creases, especially this eye. And if you have any of this going on, any of this situation, then skip these eyeshadows also because they settle in the lines and crease in my lines. And what I found is in the actual lines, it wouldn't just crease, it would fade completely. There would be a blank space and you just see lid, no color. And I was so disappointed in these, I wanted to cry. I was so mad. And I got these for free, but the problem is I bought a second set for a gift for Christmas. I actually spent my money and bought these along with getting these sent to me, and I can't give those to anyone for Christmas. I can't give those as a gift because I wouldn't use them myself, and I would never give somebody something that I wouldn't use myself. And it made me so mad because the return policy is pretty much non-existent. You can't return these, you can't get a refund. And right now I'm just sitting looking at these eyeshadows that I wasted $90 on plus shipping. So it was just a waste right there. And then I got these 3 shades, these neutral shades. I got to work a little bit in this Flamethrower shade. These 4 shades I got to work a little bit, and I have to tell you my method. And I see, it's funny because that's how I see people apply them, and I'm like, you didn't tell people why you're applying it like that, right? I have to apply the primer paint pot first. Then I have to put a matte eyeshadow all over my crease area. Anywhere I have lines, there's the matte eyeshadow, right? Then I put the eyeshadow itself only on my lid or on my inner tear duct. Only on my lid, staying away from my lines, away from my crease. Anywhere that it would crease, I stay away from. And then I have to blend them out, use a very sheer coat, let it kind of set a little bit, apply a little bit more, and then blend with a matte eyeshadow. Like, I couldn't use these in the crease. I can't use them on the outer tear duct. The outer lid. I can't use them where they're gonna crease. And that's the only way I could get these 3 to work, which they aren't as shiny as the other ones. So I think they work a little bit better because they probably have less dimethicone in them, or less of that, whatever that slippery formula is. And then Flame Point only works because I wanted it to work so bad. Like, I did the most to make it work. Again, the layering, the mattes, the keeping it out my crease. Like, I did the most to make this work, and I set it with an eyeshadow setting spray. I used my Urban Decay All-Nighter spray to set it in place so it wouldn't crease. And for me, if I'm paying $10 for an eyeshadow, especially an eyeshadow that should be affordable, I shouldn't have to go through all those steps for it to work. That means it doesn't work. And what really made me upset is that I've had other eyeshadows, similar kind of creamy, very saturated metallic formula. My Makeup Forever eyeshadows, case in point, that high metallic frost, high sheen, great pigmentation, great color payoff, and they don't crease. They don't crease. I don't have to build them up and pack them on. With or without a primer, I get the same payoff. With my finger or with a brush, I get the same payoff versus these. And these are coming very close to a Makeup Forever eyeshadow price. So the Makeup Forever eyeshadows are almost double the size, okay? And these are, if you buy them in the trio, you're gonna spend $14 for these. So these are very close in price to the Makeup Geek eyeshadows at this point, the foiled eyeshadows. And they are almost double the price. So you're getting much better value size-wise. And then these, the actual color payoff is crazy with a brush or with your fingers. So that is with my finger. And then let me grab a brush so I can show you that it's the same color payoff with a brush. And I'm doing this live so you can see it's the same color. Oh, it's the same color payoff with a brush. That's no primer on a dry hand. So for me, I don't recommend these. I say skip them completely. Do not waste your money on these like I did. Just, if you have oily lids, just don't. If you have dry lids, or if you feel inclined to try out a couple of them, it's your money, do what you want, honestly, but I wouldn't recommend them, you know? And if you truly want metallic eyeshadows that are nice and creamy and metallic and pigmented and blend great, get the Makeup Forever eyeshadows. I will recommend those 100%. Get those instead. And you might be paying a little bit more, but they're worth it in the long run. And for the price of the bundle of 10 of these eyeshadows, you can get the Makeup Forever eyeshadows. You can get 6 of them. Again, they're much larger in size. You can get 6 of them for the same price. So skip these. Skip these. I know big YouTubers, big makeup gurus have been raving about these. But anyway, you've heard about my experience, my thoughts, my reviews. Let me know what you think. Have you tried these out? What has been your experience with these? I want to know if other people have similar experience, because I haven't seen it anywhere that anybody is, you know, talking about these eyeshadows, the negatives of these eyeshadows. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I was trying not to be too harsh. I wasn't, you know, but I really can't recommend these at all. And again, if you have any thoughts and you want to share, definitely in the comments below. And as usual, I'll leave links below to my Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook pages. And I'll leave a link to the Makeup Geek website too if you want to check out the eyeshadows. You know, you never know if you want to check them out. And until my next video, which will be very soon, I'll talk to you. Bye.